Our next speaker is Oren Ellenbogen, and I have to say good things about him because he's my boss. And so, in a raise, please show your hands if your boss has ever delayed or canceled your weekly one-on-one meeting. Yeah. Okay. So now, yeah. So raise your hand if your boss delayed your meeting and you were actually, depressed, or you said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Why did you, change my meeting, cancel it?" Yeah. So we have a few hands. So our next speaker is Oren Ellenbogen, and I learn a lot from him every day, and he's gonna talk about how to deal with difficult people like me. So enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, all right, so let's start. So what I want to do today, and I'm really excited because the conference is about tools and things you can, and technology and things you can bring back to the team, back home. And the topic for this conversation is the sad reality that many times when you go and hear people talk in technical conferences, it's really hard to convey a message and bring it back home and bring this technology back home and actually put it in production, right? It's so easy to go and read on Hacker News or go to a conference and learn a few things, but it's so easy to get it lost and just have it as some sort of a side project, an open source project or a blog post instead of getting it to production. Now, I've been a technical lead and an engineering manager for many years, so I kind of want to share some of the things that I've noticed from both sides. And if I'll do a phenomenal job, I hope to provide a few tools, a few ways that you can bring technology back home and actually get it to production. Now, when I talk about tech, I usually have my confident face, and that's pretty much it, right? I think that I have a good sense of good judgment regarding technology, and I always thought that my ideas were solid as technical lead. I actually felt that the things that I offer were really going to help the company succeed, really going to help the team succeed, and I guess that like many of us, I oftentimes just brought some ideas back home, and I wanted to try it out, right? So, yay, a glitch in the presentation. Surprise. Okay, so how often did you bring like a new concept back home and you talk about it and you convince your teammates and you talk about it with your manager, right? And you're passionate about it, so you're going on and on about how you can use it and how you can make it work and how it's going to improve and make everything perfect, make everything right. And in reality, I don't know if that's you, but I often felt like an Indiana Jones kind of movie where I talked and talked and talked, and the manager just, pulled up the gun and it's a bang, right? Shut the fuck up. Yeah, so, and I kind of felt like, what the heck just happened here, right? I just spent 30 minutes explaining why it's such a wonderful thing, and just, in a bang, that was it. It wasn't always my manager. Sometimes just my teammates that just say like, yeah, man, I don't care. Like whatever you're saying, I don't care. So this is kind of the topic that I want to cover today, and hopefully make it easier, hopefully make it less like that and more successful. So, as I've mentioned, my name is Oren Ellenbogen. You could tweet. I have a few hobbies. My wife calls it work. I call it hobbies. I'm the head of engineering at Forder, where we provide to online merchant decision as a service, where we get every transactions that the merchant has, and we're getting them an approve or decline decision, meaning that if we believe that this transaction is legitimate, then you can approve and take the money. And if we're saying that to decline the transaction because we believe it's fraud, then the merchant can save himself troubles with chargebacks. So we provide it as a service. Really cool stuff and great technology. Some of it Itai covered in previous DevOps meetings, but I won't get to it now. Now, one word that I really want to make sure that I'm bringing home is that building trust, okay? And that's actually like two words, right? So building trust, that's the important thing you have to think of. Because from my experience, when things doesn't work well, it's not because rationality aspects, right? It doesn't mean that if I'm suggesting a technology or a concept, then by itself that's wrong. It's sometimes the case, right? It's not every single idea that I had in my mind was a great one. But often the case that even if I bring great ideas, just there is no trust in the organization that I can follow through with it or with the presentation, it seems. Yeah. This is what happens when you do PowerPoint on a Mac. It's a shame on me, I guess. Okay, so 3 assumptions. One of them is that 3 assumptions that I think that are necessary if you want to make sure that you can increase the ratio of the okay, maybe it's the clicker. Okay, let's try. Oh, the bundle. Anyway. Okay, let's try. Oh, no.
Yeah, try this.
Thanks. Let's pray for the God of presentations. All right, hopefully the last time. So I have 3 assumptions if we want to increase the ratio of the ideas that we bring to the table, and hopefully how much of them will be embraced by the organization. One of them is the willingness to build trust. And I'm not only talking about the technical lead, I'm also talking about the entire organization, your teammates, your manager, to understand that trust is something that you work on. It's not a given, that the fact that you were hired doesn't mean that you are trusted yet. It means that there is just the potential there, but you have to make the work, you have to make the effort to build that trust. Second is good faith, right? Because you want to make sure that people actually have good faith and are doing things and are making decisions based on that rather than their own agenda, which is obviously like sometimes a fantasy, right? But it has to be there, at least most of it. And third is just working with mature people, right? If the conversation itself is not in that level, then sometimes it just doesn't matter what you're talking about. It's not going to end well. So I want to focus on 2 aspects. One is building trust with your teammates, okay? And one is building trust with your manager. So I would like to start with building trust with your teammates and some ideas that you can think of and see if you can use some of them. First, pain level awareness. This kind of weird moment where people come to you and start talking, and the only thing you can think of is, oh my God, they did it completely wrong, let me explain them why. And you can see that they're just bleeding, right? Like production is down and you're talking about with them about queues and priority queues and things that just doesn't matter at the moment. So I think that technical leads and honestly, like every engineer in the organization have to be aware of the pain level that the other person is at. And have to have that sense to ask the question and feel that. Otherwise, you're going to provide answers that will make people just stop coming to talk with you, right? Just being an asshole. That's not fun. And second is, do you understand the context that you're in? Because like the best technical leads that I worked with, really amazing people, they have this tendency to confuse the fact that sometimes they are the owner of something, and sometimes they are brought in as a consultant, right? Just because they're really expert in this field, so someone wants to hear their opinion, doesn't mean that they want them to do their job, right? And third is the preacher kind of where you have an agenda or you have an interest in the topic, but not necessarily you understand the pains, or not necessarily you can even make an impact there. And my aim is to make you think in every discussions that you're facing is which kind of role are you filling in that discussion? Are you the owner there? Are you the consultant? Or are you the preacher? Because if you're the owner, then you have the responsibility to deliver. You have the responsibility for the outcome. then in that case, it makes absolute sense to make sure that your agenda is on the plate and people are around that, right? You can set an example by figuring out the different trade-offs and communicating about that. You can explain why you chose a specific solution rather than the other one, and you can teach others by doing so, because you're the owner there. And the consultant state of mind is that, and this is, I see many technical aids, and I've been doing so for many years, is that sometimes we're trying to hijack kind of the conversation, right? We're not the owner in that case, right? And yet we are acting as if we are. We're saying, yeah, that's not the way to build software. That's not the way to use queues correctly. That's not the way to do X. And the fact is that when we're bringing some technical aid into the room, what we want is to hear their opinion, their expert opinion. We don't want to hear them, well, that's not the way to do software, that's it, end of conversation. Okay, what do I do next? So be concise, be pragmatic, and think and remember that it's not your decision to make, you're here to assist. Okay? Lastly, the preacher, which is like a consultant that nobody paid to hear, right? The worst kind. And that's fine, because sometimes it's completely okay that if you have an agenda, if you have an interest to be part of the discussion, if you want to go and be part of the product meeting, be part of the infrastructure meeting, that's fine. Just be there. But remember that it's really rare that you'll have the understanding of the real pains that are being discussed in the room, right? Because you're so far away from the discussion. So just be kind and make sure that you offer things that you can help them get there, but don't force anything, right? Remember that nobody pulled you to come to the meeting. So even if you're one of the strongest people on the team, even on the company, it doesn't mean that you have the right to force a way of thinking. So think about that, right? Every discussion that you have, are you the owner, the consultant, or the preacher, and act accordingly. Third, be available. I see many times where technical leads, they have so many things on their plate, right? They have interviews, and they have some really strategic infrastructure kind of work on their plate, and they have so many people coming and asking for advice, and they're kind of communicating this panic mode, where if someone comes to talk to them, they say, well, listen, like, no time, talk with me next week, next month, set a meeting in the calendar. And it's completely okay, but understand the impact that it has on people, right? People will just stop coming to you because they feel that they're bothering you, right? And I think that busy is an addiction, right? That's something that you somehow enjoy, just like too busy, yeah. How was work? So many things on my plate. How was work? Crazy. Awesome, but if you want to have that place where people will come to talk with you, even if they don't have to, they just want to, you have to make sure that you keep room to be mentally available for them, to have that capacity for them, without just, signaling this panic mode and just, don't talk with me, I'm too busy, go away. And that's related really strongly to the ownership and consultancy kind of stuff, where you want to make sure that you teach people to educate them and not to convince them in your agenda, okay? And you have to make sure that you're helping them and you're lifting their skills, teaching them new things instead of just trying to force an opinion that you gathered along the years. And we all had some I don't know how many of you implemented their own ORM, right? Or experimenting with different databases just to discover a few years later then you just got it all wrong and you just do not agree with my old self. So make sure that you're helping people instead of forcing things. And it's the same it's even more so with your people. It's the only way to distribute and to scale your engineering team and to scale your capabilities is by teaching others. So if you're a technical lead, that is the only person on the team that knows how to do X, like how to deploy something, how to debug something, and you're not teaching it to other people, then you'll always be in this panic mode, right? Because you're the only one who's doing it. So every time it happens in production, everything will stop, they will call you to the room, you'll be the hero. So again, the addiction kind of part. And you won't teach it to anyone else, right? And I think that this exactly is the place where you can teach to educate without forcing anything. Just use this scenario where you're the only person on the team that knows how to do X, and stop that. Just teach other people. And I really like this quote because I can relate to it. Well, when you're a senior, junior, in a junior-senior programming, I think that the best way to measure the success rate is to understand how much the junior has learned from this session, right? And even a better metric would be that to see if this person will continue and come back to you for next time, or will it be the last time that he does so because it just wasn't a fun experience. Okay, so take these opportunities when you're sitting with other people to ask yourself, should I expect this person to come back to me next time, or was it so awful that probably that's the last time that I'll be called? And that's important if you want to have a technical lead without the authority and still have people to come to you and ask for your advice. Now, lastly, about building trust with your teammates, is that we have to create some sort of feedback loop where with code it's so easy, right? You make some changes and things either pass or not. You have test, you have production, you can play with it, you can use it. And with people, it's much more fragile, right? Things often break and you cannot even explain why. Was it something I said? Was it something I did? Was it something that I didn't say? So I urge you to come up with ways, and sadly I've seen really too little scenarios where it happens, where technical leads should have people in their team where they can just sit with them and ask them really difficult questions, right? Like, do you feel that when you're talking with me, am I providing like programmatic solutions, or am I talking too much, right? Do you feel that I'm somehow stealing the thunder of other people in the team, or overshadowing someone else? And have a discussion around that, because being in a technical lead, it's really in a position where kind of a leadership area, even though without the authority, like everyone in the organization knows that if you want to do X, you go to that person, right? That builds some sort of a credibility inside of the company. Then by default, you're going to have less feedback because you're going to deal with many more people instead of much more code. And people are just bad with giving feedback unless you create a sincere way to ask for it, a sincere way to create this discussion, and not being offended if something doesn't work for you, or if you hear some harsh words about the way that you do things. So think about that. Who in your inside of your organization do you feel that has this authority where people come to talk with them even if they don't need to, and you can see that they're doing it really, really well. And try to talk with them. Just share your pains, right? If you believe that you're a technical lead and you see that all of a sudden people stop come and talk with you, ask them questions. Like maybe they'll have some idea. Maybe some of the people that stop coming to you will go to them, and you'll know, and they can teach you, explain to you why it happens, right? So make sure that you have this feedback loop. It can be your manager, but I think that even better would be to have more people, more of your teammates provide this feedback to you. Now, I would start with, I want to talk about defaulting to positive. Now, I know that in Israel, the cynical or sarcastic kind of attitude, Israel is right and we know best. So I would like to start with that. Think of Google going to Alphabet kind of company, right? Read this tweet. Right, like Google is just changing their entire corporate structure, right? A big business, one of the most successful business in the world, right, is not afraid of making a huge drastic change, right? Just disconnecting some of the entities in Google, placing a new CEO for Google. And we often worry about, like, excuse me, but like stupid things, right? Tiny things. So I would urge you to see if you can default to positive. Like people come to you with problems, and it's so easy to find bugs in it. It's so easy to say, well, that just doesn't work like that, right? This will break. And it's really hard to explain people, to take them from a place where you can actually help them build a solution. It's really hard. It's much easier just to point fingers and say, well, this is bad, this is worse. I don't know even why you're talking with me. Just start over and let's talk in an hour, right? So make sure that as a state of mind, you're defaulting to positive. You're trying to think of ways that you can help that person, again, to create a loop where he will come back to you asking for advice instead of saying, well, you know what, that just doesn't helpful, and I don't want their opinion anymore. So, to recap, a few things that I would like you to think of when you're going back home and you're thinking of the quality of work, the quality of trust that you have with your teammates. Do you have some good pain awareness? Okay? Are you just sometimes dismissing things when it's so clear to see that this person is in pain and they're trying to solve a production issue, and everything you do is you're trying to teach them that everything that they learned is just incorrect and you need to fix that? Do you have this context, right? The ownership, consultant, preacher kind of mind. Are you available for them? Are you signaling this kind of panic mode where just get away? I don't want to talk right now. I'm too busy. Focus on teaching. Make sure that you have these opportunities. May it be pair programming, may it be some internal talks that you have in the company. So just use that to teach. Just use that to bring a concept and teach it to the rest of your teammates. You don't have to say anything. The end goal of the meeting is not to raise hands if you believe that using X is the right thing for us. It doesn't have to end like that. You can just end the conversation with, did you learn something new? Was it interesting? Should I do it again about a different topic? And if the answer is yes, then you're in a good spot, right? People want to just to listen to you. And think about it, you're working in different companies right now, right? And one of the questions that you ask someone who is hiring or is interviewing in your company, what is really important for you? And almost everyone, 99%, say, I want to work with strong people. I want to work with people who will teach me things, because I kind of feel that I'm just at the end of the potential that I have to grow in my company. So you can be that person for them, okay? You can be the one that teach them new things, and I think that's great. So make sure that you have a feedback loop. Now ask yourself, who's the person that provides feedback to you today? Is it only your manager? Is that the only person on the company that actually provide meaningful, constructive feedback to you? Now, if that's the case, that's pretty good, 90% better than the rest of the industry, I guess. But it's not good enough. You have enough great people at the company that you can ask for their advice, you can ask for their feedback, and we're not using it enough. We're only spending our time writing code and reading about that. We're not spending enough time on understanding if you're being able to come through with an idea with the team. Lastly, defaulting to positive, because I don't believe that you can be in a company without believing that in the team, in the product, in the company that you're in. So we have this positivity in mind. We're just often used the cynical approach to get away from it, which is fine, right? As a coping mechanism, it's fine. But make sure that it's not bringing this kind of poison to the team where people come to talk with you and all they feel that everything is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Who wants to work in that environment, right? For the long term. So, building trust with your manager. Now, that's the hard one. So let me start. Business awareness. I say it's the hard one because we often have this tension where the technical leads think that managers, their only concern is to get things on time and that's it. We don't care about technical debt, we don't care about anything, just get it done, that's it, go away. And oftentimes managers grasp technical leads as they only care about technology, they only care about technical debt, they don't care about the business at all. Why? It shouldn't be that way. And I believe that this is the kind of trust, kind of broken trust that there is in the middle, and I think that both sides should be working on it together. And first, you have to make sure that as a technical lead, you understand what the business, what the problem, what is the business trying to do, and what are the problems, instead of just focusing on the solution so much. Because I've been to many teams, many products, many companies, where at the end of the day, we built great technology, and the company couldn't sell it, right? Or I've built a feature, and it was a great feature, and nobody used it, and we just dumped it. And that happens, right? And we fall in love too much with our solutions, then we're going to get hurt a lot. And that's okay because we have some emotional connection with the work that we do. But I often feel that technically it's just losing perspective with the business. And I often hear that people they're trying to optimize X while the entire company is trying to optimize for Y. So make sure that you understand whether or not the company is trying to grow for revenues, grow for the kind of business that they are bringing in. Are they trying to increase the number of customers that they have? Like, what is the agenda? What are the things that the management board is talking about? So you can actually be part of the conversation and offer guidance there instead of saying, well, I don't care about that. That's business. That's bullshit. That's easy. The hard part is the architecture stuff, right? Because studying is easy once you have the right architecture. So think about that. And you're just being stuck in kind of like suggesting new ideas all of the time, and people are just dismissing it like, yeah, it's Tuesday again, Oren, we finished his new idea, awesome. And what I would like you to think of is, are you doing a good job at explaining the path that you're offering to get there? So for example, it's one thing to say, hey, we should use X. It's a different thing to say, hey, we should use X. And here is what I suggest that we can get there. Here are the small milestones, the small steps that we can validate. Here are my plan for if something goes like a disaster thing happen and we need to revert. Here is what I suggest that will happen. And just build some trust in the plan, rather than saying, hey, I want to go there and I'm not going to explain why or how. A good metric or a good thing that you can try to measure is that, for example, if you have a design review and people ask you a lot of questions at the end of it, it might mean that you didn't answer these questions along of the conversation, right? You didn't convey trust along of the conversation, so many things were left open to the end of the conversation to ask you that, okay? So what we're going to happen if we have like the entire US East will go down? What's going to happen? And this is a big question, and you should have answered it along the way, right? You should have came up with some ideas, some answers, and instead of just waiting for people to ask you at the end. So think whether or not you're doing a good job at building this path into the destination, or you're only talking about, well, we should really do, like, keep everything in memory with Redis, and that's it, okay? Lastly, this one is really important because there aren't many technical leads who are good at that, where it's kind of, there is a feeling where they can not only suggest an idea and a path, they can also suggest that they'll own the thing, right? Many times I was just dumping ideas on my boss, right? I came in, I said, well, we should do X, and okay, I'm going back to work now. You do whatever you want with it, I don't care. And the thing is that we had a guy in the company that we were like struggling with deployments, and he said, well, I can fix that. Like, give me a week, I can fix that. Cool. Okay, let's give him a week. Worst case scenario, it will take 4 weeks. Okay, fine, I don't care. The fact is that that person was willing enough to take that commitment on himself was so rare by itself that I would say, like, this is a great thing. It's a great thing both for him and the other teammates to see that if someone will take ownership on them, then I'm game. Let's play this, okay? Worst case scenario, we'll talk about how we can mitigate risk. We can talk about what happened if things doesn't work well. But it's so rare to see technical leads who can also take ownership. So ask yourself, when you're conveying new things, and you bring new things back home, are you willing to take the ownership and stand behind it, or are you just throwing it and getting out of the room so someone else will deal with it? Now, one thing about engineers is that we have this tendency of applying computer science to the way that we communicate with people, right? How many of us heard, like, does this person really needs like a lot of managing, or is it more of a fire and forget, right? Like an async operation where you just bring him work and he'll be in his room writing code and then that's it. Like, who works like that, right? You want to have this person like talking with you. You want to have this person communicating with the team, what's going on. You have to understand, like, is it okay? Is it not okay? Does this person need help? And I think that oftentimes technically don't understand that inside of the organization there is some sort of a API where people talk with each other with estimations and deadlines, because that's the easiest way to make alignment around things. Like, even if you're working with vertical teams, right, where you have the business and the product and the DevOps and the engineers and whatever in the same team, even in the same room, you still have coordination in place, because the business, like the marketeer would like to understand, well, when are we going to release this feature? Because I want to create a huge press release in TechCrunch, right? So again, alignment, even if it's the same room, even if it's a startup of 4 people, there is always this small kind of organization API that is built around estimation and built around deadlines. So think about whether or not people coming to you and ask you, like, what's the status with X? What's the status with Y? Or is it you that pushing the information out? Okay? You're saying, hey, like, it's been a week, here is the status with some things that I'm working on, some risks that I discovered along the way, some of the adjustments that I made to make sure that I'm still on time, or if I'm not on time, then what's the new deadline? So again, create that alignment. And because it's somehow expected that the engineering managers or the management will ask this question, right? So what's going on with X? What's going on with Y? This doesn't have to be this way. If you make a pattern where you can push the information outside, then people will have trust where they give you something big. They understand that you're not going only to deliver it, you're going to explain how, you're going to communicate as you're going at it, exactly where things stand, and they can feel more relaxed. I won't say relaxed, but more relaxed that this thing will happen, this thing will work, instead of let's throw some management on it and this will save us, right? Because we don't understand anything that this guy says, let's put a manager on top of him and he will do this kind of discussions. Like, I just don't understand the value with this kind of management, right? I believe that technical leads can have good communication skills and they can just communicate well with the rest of the team, the rest of the company. Now, writing. Something that I always think that I'm doing too little of, no matter how much I do it. But I think it's a great way to somehow make sure that you're concise with the message that you want to bring. And I've worked with great people who made some amazing things, and the level of their writing was oftentimes as good as the technology stack, and it just brought so much clarity and so much focus around that to the team, because people would just understand what's going to happen, right? It wasn't like a 1-hour story to understand that you want to do one little thing, just conciseness. And there are many places that you can do that, right? There are even, like, I've seen some great pull requests where comments inside of the pull request were just something that you can learn from, right? So instead of saying, hey, like, use a lock there, you could actually see a conversation around, like, why you shouldn't use a lock and why you should use a different data structure to make sure that there is no need for a lock. And just use every kind of way that you can to practice your writing, because it will just make you a better communicator with the rest of the team and with your manager. So recap. Again, 6 things that you can try with your team and with your manager. So make sure that you understand the business. Make sure that you are taking ownership of the code quality. Now, I understand that some of you, it might not be the case. Maybe the engineering manager is owning the quality. That's fine. Think about a way, a path that you can get there. Again, if you want to, of course. But I sincerely believe that this is a great way that you can take some sort of authority without having this title, but having people come to talk with you and share with you. When they have technical debt, they will come to you. Instead of coming to their engineering manager, they will come to you and talk about it. And you have a glance of what are the problems that every kind of person in the team has, right? And you can crystallize that into something more concise that you can bring to your engineering manager and say, hey, listen, I've talked with 5 people in the team, and they're all saying, like, this area is just broken. Now, here's what I suggest, right? We can do X, Y, and Z, and this will make us much more effective. And I believe also people will be less kind of stressed or just unhappy with dealing with this code, because they're always coming back to me when things doesn't work. So regarding path versus destination, just make sure that you're building this story, right? Don't tell like he died at the end. Explain how it happened. That's the interesting part. Make sure that you're pushing information. Like every time that someone comes to you and say, hey, what's going on with X? Understand it is a signal, right? It's a signal for you to be more open and more communicative on your side, whether for them to come on a daily basis and say, hey, like, what's going on? Last, write more often, find your way. Like, it doesn't really matter where, just do it. So, what's now, right? Just practice. Just use this kind of tools, these ideas. I know that there are 12 things here, right? And I know that some of them just completely you don't agree with. That's okay. Maybe one of them, or two of them, or five of them, I don't know. You do agree with, and you believe that you can try it. That's for me, that's more than I can ask for. So just practice. And I know that if I'm asking that for you is, it's, what does it even mean? But when this guy says it, it's much better. Then listen to him. Thank you so much. You can. Thank you. You can reach out with or email me or whatever you want. We're hiring. Talk with me later on if you want to. Questions, or we are out of time and we're hungry for food. Questions? High fives at the end? Question? Yeah?
What happens when you're all stuck in just putting out fires and you don't have the time to get to those one-on-one relationships or even to innovate inside of your business?
Okay, so the question was, what happens when you're stuck with this kind of putting down fires instead of just focusing on the things that I talked about? And that's a great thing. The thing that I'm trying to ask is it necessarily for you to fix that? Because again, it's kind of the hero syndrome, where many times as technical lead, where I was like extremely good at let's say debugging a specific service, then every time it crashed, I was the one who's doing it, right? So the question that I would ask is it necessary for you to do it? And if you're saying, hey, listen, like I'm struggling, right? I'm putting out fires everywhere in the system, then I would do this work to say, hey, like who can help me with that? Who should I train? Like I understand that I'm the only person in the team that has this level of experience, but is it something that has to remain that way for the long run? Why? Okay? So maybe like in a month or two, if you build some sort of a way, like training, talk about it, I don't know, do something about that, maybe you'll be out of like dealing with fires in a month or two and get there. Okay, high fives later.